The prisoners in the cold silence. The sun on planet Varkon was harsh. It did not shine with warmth, it burned. Above the prison yard, it hung like a cruel eye, watching everything in silence. Rows of prisoners stood in line. Their hands were tied. Their heads were bowed. None of them spoke. Even the wind was silent. Among them stood a man who looked different from the rest. He was human. His name was Reed Carter. His face was bloody. Dust stuck to his skin, and his lips were cracked. From thirst, his boots were torn, his clothes shredded. But in his eyes, there was something strange. Not fear, not surrender. Something else. Something the other prisoners had forgotten. Hope. Reed had no idea how many days had passed since he crashed on this planet. He was a scout sent by Earth to observe the Varnock Empire's outer colonies. But the Varnock shot down his ship and he was captured. Now he stood among alien prisoners, creatures of different shapes and colors. Some had scales, others had fur, some had wings or horns. They were all silent, waiting. Execution day. At the front of the yard stood a large platform. It was made of black stone. The Varnock commander stood beside it, tall and armored in red metal, his face hidden behind a silver mask. Behind the commander stood a group of guards, and beside them was a little alien girl. She looked no older than 10 human years. Her skin was light purple, her eyes large and shining blue. She wore royal robes. Her name was Yari, though Reed didn't know that yet. She watched everything. Her face was calm, almost too calm for a child. The first prisoner was dragged to the platform, a tall, bird-like creature with silver feathers. The executioner raised his blade. Reed looked away. The blade fell. No one screamed. Next. Then the next. One by one, the prisoners were killed. No words. No last requests. Reed could feel his heart pounding. He looked up at the sky, searching for something. Anything. But there were no ships. No rescue. When they called his name, his legs felt heavy, but he moved forward. 2 guards grabbed him by the arms. He didn't resist. The stone platform was warm under his feet. He faced the commander. The silver mask glared down at him. "Human," the commander said coldly. "You will die like the rest." Reed didn't answer. The executioner stepped forward, lifting his curved blade. Then, a voice cried out, "Wait!" It was soft, but it stopped everything. All eyes turned. The little alien girl had stepped forward. Her small hand was lifted, and she was pointing right at Reed. The guards looked at each other, confused. The executioner froze. The commander turned. "What is the meaning of this, child?" Yari's voice was clear now. "That one. He stays." The silence was louder than before. The commander looked down at her. "He is human. He is our enemy. You speak without permission." "I saw fire in him," she said. The commander took a step closer. "You are the seer's daughter. You have no rank here." But the guards did not move. No one dared touch the child. Reed looked at her, confused. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know why she was protecting him. But her eyes met his. She was calm, certain. Finally, the commander growled, "Take him back to the cell, he will die later." The guards dragged Reed away from the platform. Behind him, the next prisoner was called. Reed didn't understand what just happened. Why did the little girl save him? He was thrown into a small cell, cold and dark. The door slammed shut behind him. He leaned against the wall, breathing hard. He was alive. But for how long? Outside, he could still hear the sound of the blade, falling, again and again. And somewhere, behind the stone walls, a little girl with bright blue eyes whispered to herself, "He's the one." The human stays. The cell was silent, except for the faint dripping sound from somewhere in the dark. Reed sat in the corner, his knees pulled up to his chest, his back against the cold stone wall. His body ached, but the pain didn't bother him now. What haunted him was that little girl's voice. That one. He stays. He whispered it to himself. Why? Why had she stopped everything? Why him? The other prisoners had died without question. The Varnoks had shown no mercy. Yet the moment she spoke, the entire execution ground had frozen, as if her words carried more power than the commander's blade. Reed didn't even know her name. He didn't know how long he sat in that cell. Hours. Maybe a full day. There was no food. No water. No explanation. Only questions. Just when he was about to drift into sleep, the door to his cell clicked open. He tensed, expecting guards. But what stepped in was her, the little alien girl. She was alone. No guards. No adults. Just a soft, glowing orb floating beside her head, casting blue light on her face. Reed scrambled to his feet, confused. She stood calmly in front of him, holding something that looked like a small silver disc. She pressed it once. A voice came out, her voice, but translated into English. "You're awake." Reed blinked. "Who are you?" "My name is Yari," she said through the translator. "You are human, from Earth." He nodded slowly. "Reed Carter." She looked around his cell, frowning slightly. "They left you in the dark." "I've been in worse," he said quietly. She tilted her head. "You were not afraid, even when the blade was over your head." "I was," Reed admitted. "But I didn't want to show it." Yari's eyes sparkled a little. "That's why I chose you." "Chose me for what?" he asked. She sat down on the floor. "To survive." Reed slowly sat across from her, unsure what game this was. "Why me?" he asked again. "I'm not special, I'm just a scout. I wasn't even supposed to land on your planet." She looked at him with serious eyes. "I saw you before you came." Reed frowned. "What do you mean?" Yari pointed to her head. "I see things, visions, dreams. I don't always understand them, but they come true." She paused. "In one of them I saw a man standing in fire, not burning but glowing. Around him were the broken chains of others, and behind him was me." Reed's breath caught in his throat. She looked down. "My people call me the seer's child. But they don't listen to me. I am only a child to them. My father is gone. My mother. She fears me." "Because of your visions?" "Because I speak of change," Yari said softly. Reed was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, "Why did you come here? If they find you talking to me." "They won't," she said quickly. "I disabled the hall sensors. I've been learning from the machine books in the High Library." Reed gave a small smile. "You're clever." She nodded. "But not strong. That's why I need you." Reed leaned closer. "Need me for what?" Yari hesitated, then whispered, "To start the fire." He stared at her. "The prisoners," she said. "The ones who died. They were not criminals. They were rebels. Refugees. Some just spoke too loud. The Varnok. Empire is afraid, so they kill." "I figured that much," Reed said. "But you," she added, "are different. They fear you, even though they don't say it." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Because I'm human?" "No," Yari whispered. "Because I'm not the only one who saw the fire. Others saw it too. The prisoners talked about you. They believed Earth sent you to save them." Reed looked away. "Earth doesn't know I'm alive. My mission was secret. When I crashed, no signal got out." Yari reached into her robes and pulled out a tiny broken piece of a communicator, human technology. Reed's heart stopped. "Where did you get this?" "It was taken from your ship wreckage," she said. "I fixed it mostly." "You fixed this?" "I told you. she said with a small smile. I learn fast. Reed took the device carefully. He turned it over, in his hands. It looked rough, but maybe, just maybe, it could send a signal. Yari stood. I'll return tomorrow, but not alone. There are others. Secret ones, they want to meet you. Others like you? She shook her head. No. Fighters, rebels, aliens who are tired of running. Reed felt a chill. What do they want from me? He asked. They want you to lead. Reed laughed bitterly. I'm not a leader, I'm not a hero. I didn't even want to come here. Yari's voice was firm now. You didn't want to die either, but you stood anyway, that's why they'll follow. She turned to leave. At the door, she looked back one last time. The fire is coming. Reed Carter, whether you like it or not. The door closed behind her. Reed sat in the cell again, now with the broken communicator in his lap, and a storm in his mind. For the first time since he crashed, he didn't feel alone. The fire in the cell. Reed stared at the broken communicator in his hands. The cell was still cold, but it no longer felt empty. His mind kept replaying Yari's words. The fire is coming, Reed Carter, whether you like it or not. He had not asked to be a symbol. He was just trying to stay alive. But something had changed. For the first time since the crash, something had lit a spark inside him. Hope. He had almost forgotten what that felt like. The communicator she gave him was damaged, clearly old, scratched, and partially rewired. But it was human tech. That alone made it valuable. Reed's training kicked in. He carefully removed the cover plate using the edge of a rusted nail he'd pried from his cot. The inside looked rough, but fixable. If he could realign the crystal transmitter and reroute the power coil, maybe he could send out a short-range burst signal, a flare, something Earth sensors might pick up. He worked for hours, hands shaking, breath fogging in the cold air. Time blurred. Finally, he heard the soft hiss of the cell door opening again. He looked up. It was Yari, and this time she wasn't alone. Two figures stepped in behind her, tall, cloaked aliens with hard eyes. One was a male Drashti covered in silver scales and burn marks on his face. The other was a female Luranian, with long tendrils for hair and sharp markings on her arms. They looked dangerous, and Sirius Yari introduced them calmly. This is Vesh. He used to lead a rebel cell before the Empire crushed it. And this is Rena. She knows the prison layout better than any guard. Reed stood up slowly, meeting their eyes. So, you're the ones planning something. We were, Vesh said in a deep growl. Then you arrived. Now we're waiting. Waiting for what? For you, Rena said sharply. The human from the dreams. The one the child protected. The one who faced the blade without flinching. Reed shook his head. You want a legend? I'm just a man. Exactly, Vesh said. And that's what scares them. Reed looked at them both. You don't need a symbol. You need a plan. We have a plan, Yari said, but we can't do it without you. Rena stepped forward and pulled a rough map from her cloak. She laid it on the floor. It showed the prison yard, the guard towers, the gate tunnels, the underground tunnels, old maintenance routes now blocked off. She pointed to a red mark. Here, tomorrow night. Shift change. Weakest guard presence. We strike. We free the others. We run. And if we fail? Reed asked. Vesh smiled grimly. Then we die like the rest. Reed looked at Yari, her small face brave and focused. He took a deep breath. All right, I'm in. Yari's eyes lit up, but Rena held up her hand. We have rules. No weapons, no open killing. If we get out, we leave as many alive as we can. We show the Empire that we're not animals. Reed nodded. Fine by me. Suddenly there was a sound from the hallway. Footsteps. Too many. The rebels vanished into the shadows with quick precision. Yari ducked behind the cot. Reed dropped the communicator and sat like nothing had happened. The door burst open. Two Guards stepped in, dragging another prisoner. They threw him to the ground and slammed the door shut again. The prisoner groaned. He was badly beaten, his green blood leaking from a wound on his chest. Reed rushed to him. "Hey, can you hear me?" The alien blinked. He had 3 eyes and thin, pale skin. "Human," he whispered. "You're real." Reed tore a piece of cloth from his own shirt to press on the wound. "I'm Reed. Stay with me," the alien coughed. "They tortured me. Thought I was part of something bigger." Reed leaned closer. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing," the alien breathed. "But they know something's coming. They're afraid of you." "Why?" They said. The girl pointed to him, and everything changed. He looked up at Reed. "Don't let them kill the fire." Then his eyes closed. He passed out. Reed sat back. He looked at Yari, who now slowly stepped out from behind the cot. "They know," he said. Yari nodded. "Then we must move faster." Reed picked up the communicator again. He pressed the power node. A faint light blinked. The signal was weak, but it was alive. He smiled for the first time in days. "The fire's not dying," he said. "It's just getting started." Outside the cell walls, guards barked orders. Inside, a human, a seer's daughter, and 2 rebels sat in silence, preparing for war. The fire had begun. Whispers of rebellion. The fire had started, not in flames, but in whispers, and whispers spread fast. In the corners of the prison halls, behind kitchen walls, deep beneath the stone floors in the tunnels long forgotten. The word was out. The human is still alive. The girl saw him in fire. "He's the one." Guards tried to control it. They shouted, beat prisoners, moved inmates around, increased patrols, but it was already too late. Reed Carter had become a symbol, and symbols were harder to break than bones. Inside his cell, Reed was working on the communicator again. Yari sat beside him, watching closely, holding a stolen power chip in her small hand. "We need this to hold," Reed whispered. "Just one burst. One clean signal. That's all." "I took the chip from the command hall," she said proudly. Reed paused, staring at her. "You did what?" Yari smiled. "They don't notice me when I walk quietly. I'm just a child, remember?" He couldn't help but grin. "You're the bravest just a child I've ever seen." She leaned closer, eyes serious. "Are you afraid?" Reed looked at her for a long moment. "Yes," he said, "but I'm more afraid of doing nothing." That night, Vesh and Rena returned, this time with 3 more rebels. One was a quiet old alien with mechanical arms. Another was a nurse from the infirmary. The third was a former Varnock guard who had defected after watching innocent prisoners die. They sat in the shadows around the map. Rena spoke quietly. "The gate system is old. We can overload the generator from inside the maintenance room. That buys us 10 minutes. "And the control tower?" Reed asked. "Too many guards," Vesh said, "unless someone makes a distraction." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Distraction?" "Something loud, something they'll chase." Reed looked around the group. "I'll do it." Vesh frowned. "No. You're too valuable. If you get caught..." "They already want me dead," Reed interrupted. "Let me use that." The group fell silent. It was the nurse who finally spoke. "He's right. The guards hate him. They watch him every second. If he runs, they'll follow." Yari looked worried, but she didn't argue. Reed placed a small piece of metal on the map. "I'll draw them toward the east wing. You break the prisoners out. Vesh, Rena, lead them through the waste tunnels. Yari stays with me." "No," she said suddenly. "I go with them." Reed blinked. "What? Why?" "If you fall," she said, "the fire must survive." The group stared at her. She was just a child, but she spoke like a leader. Even Vesh nodded. "All right," Reed said slowly, "but promise me if you get out, you keep fighting." "I will." Suddenly, the communicator beeped. Everyone turned. Reed stared at it in disbelief. A blinking green light. Signal found. He pressed the button, heart racing. Static hissed through the small speaker, then a garbled voice. "This is Earth Command. Identify." "Over." Reed pressed again. "This is Scout 6-2 Alpha. Name, Reed Carter. I am alive. I repeat, I am alive. Located on Varkon Prison. Colony. Resistance active. Send help." Silence. Then a voice again. "Signal weak. Confirming location. Hold. We're coming." The light blinked twice, then died. The room was frozen in silence. Rena whispered, "Did it go through?" Reed nodded slowly. "They heard us." Vesh stood up. "Then it begins." That night, while guards slept under artificial stars, the Resistance made its final move. Yari slipped through tunnels, carrying secret maps in her robe. Vesh sharpened old metal bars into weapons. Rena crawled through vents and placed signal jammers near the towers. Reed waited near the east wing, pacing like a caged animal. At exactly midnight, he kicked open a metal crate and lit a torch with chemicals Yari had smuggled from the lab. Flames burst high. Alarm screamed. Guards came running. Reed turned and sprinted into the halls, torch in hand. "Get the human," one shouted. "He's escaping." 10 guards followed, just as planned. Meanwhile, prisoners across the yard heard the noise and saw Rena opening the main gate from inside. "Move!" she shouted. "Now!" Dozens ran, some limped, some carried others. The rebellion had begun. Yari stood near the old tunnel door, helping aliens through. Her hands shook, but her voice was strong. "This way! Faster!" Back in the east wing, Reed was cornered. He dropped the torch and raised his fists, but just as the guards closed in, the wall behind him shook. Boom! The old wall collapsed. A ship, small and silver, hovered outside the breach. Earth's colors. Someone had heard him. Reed dived through the smoke. A rope was lowered. He grabbed it as hands reached for him. The guard screamed behind him, but he was pulled up into the sky. The ship door slammed shut. A soldier handed him water. "Welcome back, sir." Reed looked down at the prison below. Lights flashed. Fires raged, and through it all hundreds of aliens were running to freedom. Somewhere among them was Yari, the girl who had started it all. The human's choice. Reed Carter sat in the medical bay of the Earth dropship, his body wrapped in bandages, his face bruised but calm. Outside the window, the prison planet Varkon was growing smaller as the ship rose into orbit. He was safe, but his heart was not. "How many made it?" he asked quietly. The medic beside him checked a screen. "Initial reports say over 300 escaped. More are still missing, or fighting underground." Reed looked away. "Any news about a small alien girl? Purple skin, big blue eyes. Her name's Yari." The medic shook her head. "No confirmed sightings, but we're still receiving surface signals." Reed's fists tightened. Yari had saved him. She had started this rebellion, and she might still be down there, trapped, hiding, or worse. The ship's captain entered the bay. He saluted Reed. "Scout Carter, Command wants you debriefed on the orbital base. You'll be flown out within the hour." "I'm not leaving," Reed said immediately. The captain blinked. "Excuse me? There are still people down there." "My people." "With respect, sir, they're not humans." "They're prisoners," Reed said. "They stood beside me, bled beside me. That makes them mine." The captain frowned. "Your duty was to observe and report. You're not a soldier." "I wasn't," Reed said, "but I became one the moment that girl pointed at me." The room fell quiet. Reed stood wincing in pain and walked to the window. Below, flashes of fire still danced across the surface of Varkon. "I'm going back," he said, "even if I go alone." The captain hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "We'll prepare a stealth pod." Back on Varkon, deep in the waste tunnels, Yari moved through the darkness with a small group of rebels. Vesh was wounded. He leaned against the nurse, his side bleeding. Rena led the way with a small glow stick in her hand. Her face was streaked with ash. Yari walked silently, holding the map close to her chest. "We're almost there," she whispered. "Old vent system leads to the surface. But the guards are everywhere now," Rena warned. "They know the breakout came from inside." "Then we keep moving," Yari said. "The human didn't run, neither will we." Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the tunnel. Everyone froze. Then they saw it, a small egg-shaped pod crashing through the old wall, landing in front of them with a heavy thud. The door hissed open. Reed stepped out, covered in ash, wounded, but standing tall. Yari's eyes lit up. "You came back," she said, breathless. He smiled. "Told you the fire wasn't out." Vesh limped forward. "You're mad, human, coming back here alone." "I'm not alone," Reed said. "Earth is watching now. They'll send more help, but we need to hold until they arrive." Yari asked, "Do we fight?" Reed looked around the group, tired, hungry, wounded, and still standing. "We survive. We defend this tunnel. We protect the wounded. And when Earth arrives, we rise." The rebels nodded. In that moment, it didn't matter that they were different species. They were one force now. A spark had become a flame. Hours passed. The rebels turned the tunnels into strongholds. Traps were set. Patrols were placed. Reed stood at the front, watching the tunnel mouth with a scavenged blaster in hand. Yari stood beside him, clutching a small dagger. "You are should rest," he told her. "I will," she said, "when the Empire is gone." Reed looked down at her. "You're still just a kid." She looked up. "You're still just a scout." He laughed softly. "Fair point." Suddenly, static buzzed through Reed's earpiece. A signal from orbit. "Reed, this is Commander Alvarez, reinforcements inbound. ETA 10 minutes, can you hold?" He pressed the mic. "We'll try." And then, the tunnel shook. The enemy had arrived. Dozens of Varnock soldiers poured in, metal armor glowing, rifles raised. "Hold!" Reed shouted. "Protect the wounded!" Blaster fire filled the air. Smoke, screams, chaos. But the rebels fought like they had something to live for. And beside them, Reed fought like he had nothing left to lose. He tackled a Varnock soldier, wrestled his weapon away, and fired into the crowd. Yari ducked and slashed at a guard's leg. She moved like lightning, small, fast, fearless. Vesh threw a broken pipe into the control console, overloading the lights and plunging the tunnel into darkness. Only flashes from blasters lit the fight, and then, a massive explosion shook the tunnel entrance. Reed looked up. Drop pods. Dozens of Earth soldiers flooded in, weapons drawn. The Varnock troops fell back. Some dropped their weapons. Others ran. It was over. Reed fell to his knees, exhausted. A soldier helped him up. "Sir, are you all right?" He nodded, breathing hard. Yari walked up beside him. Her dagger was stained. Her eyes were clear. "You stayed," she whispered. "I made a choice," he said. "You chose us." Reed looked around at the rebels, bleeding, crying, alive. "I chose right." The night of the uprising. Night on Varkon didn't bring peace. It brought fire. From the sky, dropships burned through the black clouds like falling stars. They carried Earth soldiers, real ones this time, with weapons, medics, supplies, and orders. Secure the rebels. Break the Empire's grip. Save who you can. Reed stood near the broken tunnel entrance, his arm in a sling, his face streaked with dirt and blood. But he was alive, and now he was no longer fighting alone. All around him, alien prisoners had turned into fighters. Vesh barked orders while leaning on a crutch. Rena patched up a wounded Drashti rebel using scraps of bandage. The nurse helped carry the young and sick toward the landing zone. Yari walked quietly behind Reed, her eyes watching every move. She was not just the girl who had saved the human. She had become something more. A symbol. The fire she saw in her visions had grown, and now it burned across the prison world. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Reports came in from the Western Bloc. Enemy reinforcements incoming. The Varnock Empire was not going down without a fight. They're sending tanks, one soldier warned. Heavy armor, too strong for hand weapons. Reed nodded slowly. Then we don't fight them head on. He turned to the map carved into the wall made by prisoners over years of secret planning. There's a fuel depot near the power station, he said. If we blow it at the right time, the blast will take out the whole path. That could kill us too, Rena warned. Reed looked at her. Only if we time it wrong. I can time it right, said a quiet voice. Yari stepped forward. No, Reed said instantly. You've done enough. I'm the only one small enough to crawl through the ducts, she argued. I've studied the layout. I know where the ignition lines are. Reed looked into her eyes. She wasn't asking for permission. She was telling him what had to be done. He nodded slowly. All right, he said, but I'm going with you. The two of them crawled through the old ducts together, dark metal pipes that creaked with every breath. Yari led the way, whispering the path. Reed followed, his injured arm dragging behind him. They reached the fuel depot's main line. A thick, metal pipe humming with energy. This is it, Yari said. We attach the charges here. The explosion will bring down the roof and block the tanks. Reed handed her the timed detonator. You sure about this? Yari nodded. We don't run anymore, we burn the fear. Together they placed the charges and set the timer. 4 minutes. Then they crawled back. Behind them, the timer ticked. Reed and Yari burst out of the vent just as the Varnock tanks came into view, massive, growling beasts of steel. Fall back. Reed shouted, Take cover. Everyone dove into the side tunnels. Then, boom! The ground split open. Flames roared into the sky. The tanks vanished in smoke and fire. Reed shielded Yari as dust filled the air. When it cleared, the path was gone. Rubble blocked the entire route. The prison shook. And then, silence. Then cheers. They had done it. The Varnock forces were cut off. The rebels had won. For the first time in years, the prison was free. As morning light broke over Varkon, Earth ships began evacuating the wounded and the weak. Reed stood near the launch pad watching lines of survivors board the transports. A soldier came up behind him. Sir, final call. Are you boarding? Reed looked at the line of rebels, then at the broken sky above. I'll go last, he said. The soldier nodded. Yari walked up beside him, now dressed in a patched flight jacket too big for her small frame. She handed him a glowing crystal. It's from my mother. She sent it, before they took her. It shows stars, the ones I used to dream about. Reed took it gently. She'd be proud of you, he said. Yari looked up at him. And you? He smiled. I'm proud of us. As they boarded the ship together, the crowd behind them cheered, not just for a human, not just for a girl, but for hope, for rebellion, for unity, for something new. The girl, the human, and the future. 2 weeks later, the stars above Earth Station Alpha shimmered like fireflies in the dark. Reed Carter stood at the viewing deck, looking out into space. Below him was a wide stretch of open galaxy, but his mind wasn't on the stars. It was on a purple-skinned girl sitting at the edge of the deck, legs swinging, watching the stars too. Yari, the one who had started everything, the one who pointed at him and stopped the blade. Now she was no longer a prisoner, no longer just a seer's daughter. She was free and she had choices. Do you miss Varkon? Reed asked as he walked up beside her. She shook her head. I miss the ones we lost, but not the place. Reed nodded. Me too. Behind them, Earth officers and rebel leaders were gathering in a hall for a conference. Talks had begun about building a free zone, something called the United Fringe, where escaped prisoners and survivors could build a life together without Empire control. And they all agreed on one thing. The girl and the human who started it would help lead it. Reed didn't want the attention, but he understood now. Some fires aren't chosen. They're inherited. He sat beside Yari. She was holding a small, hollow device. A message played softly, her mother's voice recorded long ago. Yari, if you ever leave this place, look for the ones with honest eyes. They will protect you, and one day, you will protect them. Yari closed the message and looked at Reed. Do you think they'll accept me out there? She asked. Not all, he answered honestly. But the ones who matter will. She smiled. Just then, the station's comm system chimed. All leaders to Hall 7. Vote to begin Fringe. Accord in progress. Reed and Yari stood up. As they walked together through the hallway, other aliens bowed slightly. Drashti, Loranians, even former guards. Not out of fear, but respect. In the conference hall, a large round table waited. Reed was given a seat. Yari too. General Alvarez stood at the front. We stand at the edge of something new, the general said. We were enemies. Now we are survivors. The United Fringe is not just a territory. It is a promise. A promise that no child will be chained again, that no species will be silenced because of fear. She looked at Reed and Yari. We owe that promise to them. The room applauded. Yari looked uncomfortable. Reed leaned toward her. You okay? She nodded. Just, surprised. I didn't think I'd live to see this day. Reed smiled. That makes two of us. Then a voice came from behind them. Permission to speak? Everyone turned. A young alien girl stood at the door, skin like marble, eyes glowing red. Clearly another refugee. She was shaking. I heard stories, she said. About a human who saved the seer's daughter. Is it true? Reed stood. I didn't save her, he said. She saved me. Yari stood beside him. The young girl walked forward slowly, tears in her eyes. My people were left behind. They still suffer. Can the Fringe help them too? Yari reached out and gently held the girl's hand. That's why we're here. Reed looked around the room. That's why we fight. Weeks turned into months. The United Fringe became real. Stations, ships, small colonies where freedom was more than just a word. Reed chose not to return to Earth. He stayed in the galaxy's edge where he could help rebuild, protect, and train others. Yari studied medicine, technology, and languages. She became a voice for children across the stars, speaking not just of war, but of healing. She and Reed lived on the same station. Their rooms were small, their lives simple, but their mission never ended. They were leaders, survivors, symbols. One night, as they sat under a clear dome and watched ships arrive at the docking bay, Yari asked, Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't pointed at you that day? Reed nodded. All the time. And? I wouldn't be here, and the fire might have died. Yari looked up at him. You never asked why I pointed at you. Reed smiled. I figured I'd earn that answer someday. She took a deep breath. In my dream, I saw a wall of flames, people screaming. But through it all, I saw you. Not because you were strong, not because you were special, but because you didn't run. Reed went quiet. Then he whispered, I almost did. She smiled softly. But you didn't. 1 year later, the Varnock Empire had fallen back. New alliances were formed, and in one of the farthest sectors a monument was built, not of war, but of a single moment, a statue of a little girl, her hand raised, not in fear, but in hope. And beside her, a human standing tall, his head bowed in respect. The plaque read, She pointed not to a savior but to a spark, and the spark lit the stars.